Transit Tuesday Talk. This very special Transit Tuesday Talk is focused on Wayne County-wide. And a very exciting opportunity to expand transit throughout the entire county. So my name is Megan Owens. I'm the Executive Director of Transportation Riders United. I'm able to serve as your MC today. I did want to note to ensure that people online and people in person are all able to engage in some of the questions and that we can get a little input from everyone. We have a fun online tool. So if, oh yeah, there it is. So I would invite everybody, go to any web browser on your phone or computer, slido.com/Wayne. You don't need any account, you don't need any downloads or apps or anything. Just go to that site and there should be some survey questions for you. And then that is also where we will have the Q&A questions. So you can put your questions in and you can see the other questions that other people have and upvote them if they're things that you think are especially important. So we are thrilled to be here in the city of Westland, the heart of Wayne County in many ways. And so we have a special welcome from the city council president. Would you like to say a few words?
Well, thank you, Director Owens, and thank you to the entire True team and for everybody who is joining us here today in the city of Westland. As Director Owens mentioned, my name is Council President Mike McDermott. I am the City Council President here in Westland. I'm also joined by our Deputy Mayor, Jim Godbout, who is in the back. And Nicole Johnson, my friend, thank you for joining us here. I want to mention that the City of Westland has been longtime supporters in the fight for regional affordable mass transit. Here in Westland, number one, we have never been an opt-out community. So we've always been a part of the smart system here in Westland. And number two, we've always been partners with SMART, and we have had what we call the Canton Transit Authority in our community. And that is an affordable transit option for seniors and those who are differently able here in Westland. So we've always been partners with SMART, and we've had our own transit option here regionally in the city of Westland with the Canton Transit Authority. So we really put our money where our mouth is, and proving that we care about regional mass transit in our community, and we care about building inclusive transit options and affordable transit options for folks. Because we know that there are seniors and people of all ability levels who need affordable and reliable transit. And so here in Westland, we've always been supportive of that. And I know based on conversations that I've had with other elected officials in our community and based on the work that we have continued to do, that future forward-thinking transit options is going to be something that you can count on the city of Westland supporting as well. So as we look to expand options beyond what SMART currently offers here in Wayne County and throughout the Metro Detroit region, know that you can count on the city of Westland in being a partner for affordable and reliable mass transit options. And I would be remiss, last but not least, in saying that when you are done with today's meeting, know that we have a lot of really nice restaurants that you can go to, whether via your own vehicle or the smart bus here in the city of Westland. So please check out some of the great local small businesses and restaurants as you leave today. If you're looking for somewhere to go out to eat, Westland has a plethora of shopping and dining options. Thank you all for joining us.
So the issue of opt-out and the sort of Swiss cheese system that we have of public transit has a long history. And so I've asked True's campaigns manager, Joel Batterman, who also is something of a regionalism historian, to give us a little background on transit in the region and how we got to the point where we are today.
Thanks, Megan. Joel Adamant with True Campaigns Manager. Let's see if this works. Do I find it?
Oh, did it shut off? I can click it for you if it shut off. Well, now it's working.
Shows up. Let's go back, yeah, go back to the, so for the folks who had a chance to do the survey, I'm gonna make Joel wait a minute. What did we see? Yeah, to the extent people have had a chance to do the survey. You, all right, so we have a number of folks here, from Detroit, Hugh, Plymouth, Canton, Livonia, downriver, and elsewhere in the region. All right, moving on. And we asked how often you ride transit. All right, we got a fair number of people on, again, both in person and online that ride all the time or weekly, but we do also have some folks who only occasionally or never ride because we know the options aren't always there to get people where they need to go, but it's great to see we have a lot of riders here. Excellent. How would you rate Wayne County Transit today? All right, so average score of 2.4. I think we all recognize it's nowhere near where we want it to be, but we do have some really critically important services. So a range of scores averaging about a 2.4. And all right, how do you feel about transit going countywide? Pretty sure excited takes the win, although we definitely also have other comments of happy, unreliable, variation, needed, hopeful, limited. All right. I think, was that the last of the survey? Oh yeah, we'll get into some of these other topics later. We asked again, what else what are some of the other feedback? So thank you so much for that survey input.
Can you
Oh,
scoot
yes,
over?
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right, now we will pass it over to Joel to give the background. Thanks.
Thanks, Megan, and thank you, Donald, for getting the clicker working for us. So to understand how we got to the point we are today with transit, you really have to go back to 1995 because that was the year that SMART shifted to a property tax-based system for local funding.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Beautiful.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, so in 1995, SMART, which had never had a local funding source, adopted the property tax as its local funding source. And in Wayne and Oakland County, municipalities were given the choice as to whether to opt in or opt out of the system. In Macomb County, the county commission decided to go all in. So as you can see, a lot of municipalities, cities and townships in red or orange, did not opt into the system. The more urbanized cities and suburbs did. Detroit opted out since it already had the Detroit Department of Transportation DDOT transit system. But to some people's surprise, all of the areas that chose to be part of the system resoundingly approved the property tax that finally, after many years, provided a dedicated funding source for SMART. Unfortunately, of course, because of those opt-outs, transit in the region was limited. The opt-in areas got SMART service, the opt-out areas did not. And those opt-out areas, although they tended to be more towards the edge of the region, they included a lot of fairly populous cities and townships, places like Canton, Novi, Rochester, some major destinations like 12 Oaks Mall. Yeah, as a result, folks like James Robertson, the famous walking man who had to take the bus and then walk to his job in Rochester Hills. Yeah, transportation was very difficult for many, if indeed they were able to use transit at all to get to their destinations. Oh, and I mentioned, yeah, the city of Livonia was originally part of SMART, But when they faced a tax increase to pay for other municipal services, they voted to opt out so that they could keep their taxes at the same rate. Very unfortunate, created a large gap in the system, you can see over there. And of course, you know, the opt-outs did not only affect folks seeking jobs and employment in those opt-out suburbs, it also affected folks in the opt-out suburbs themselves. Transit became very limited in Livonia, for instance, after the city opted out. Livonia has its own transit system, but currently it only serves folks within the city and within 1 mile of the city for medical reasons only. So if you're trying to go outside the city for events or even, you know, to say the, I don't know, Henry Ford Hospital, you're unfortunately out of luck. Also, the service is only available Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Obviously that's a huge impediment to folks getting around and living their lives. Kim Snyder, who's a Livonia resident with a disability, who I believe is listening in today again, she's quoted here saying, "I just want the people in our community, the differently abled community, to have the same rights and access that other people do." I would say that's a fair request. So in 2022, there were, after some political changes in Oakland County, the county commission voted to actually put SMART on the ballot for the entire county for the first time. And it ended up passing with 57% of the vote. And that brought new fixed route bus service to places like Novi, Rochester Hills, Waterford. It also brought improved rural transit service. I'm gonna skip this video for now since we're make sure we stay on time, but this is Teresa Rogerson here is a Holly resident who for her, she said, before WOTA, that is the West Oakland Transportation Authority, I really had lost hope. And now I feel like I'm living the life I want. She can get to swim classes, to other events, now that that countywide millage passed and WOTA was able to significantly expand services. Yeah, that's sorry, Teresa, but yeah, definitely look up that video. It's a very moving short. And you can see here after you know, in 2024, when the new services went into effect, there was a huge increase in the amount of people taking transit in places like West Oakland and North Oakland, which have the WOTA and NOTA transit authorities. So after the Oakland proposal passed, that left Wayne County as the only county in the Tri-County region without countywide transit. Wayne County Executive Warren Evans decided that voters should have a chance to change that. So a law was passed that sets up a countywide vote on transit this August in Wayne County. And yeah, I'll hand over the mic to Assad Turfe, Deputy Wayne County Executive. Thanks, Assad.
So that was a great presentation. I think he walked it through all the steps, and I think it's my turn now to kind of walk us from that law change, and we'll continue on. So there was an old law that was written in 1986. It was a public amendment that was written in the late 80s and ultimately passed. And you know, that law allowed at the time for municipalities to create transit authorities, but allowed at a local level for communities to be able to opt out. And what that did is create the Swiss cheese map. And I was telling Megan earlier, I'd like to come up with a new term. I'm going to call it half-baked. And it's half-baked, and it's like you take the cake, you put it in the oven, you cook it only halfway through. It's not fully cooked. It might look like a cake, but it ain't going to taste like a cake. And the reality of it is we didn't have a transit system that works here. Is it something currently right now that we could say we have a transit system? Yeah, we could say it does, but it's not effective. It's not working the way a transit system is supposed to work. So we worked with the state legislature and we amended the state law in lame duck. It was a tough process. It was a long process. And anyone that remembers what it looked like at the end of 2024, when there was a Republican legislature coming in and the Democratic legislator was losing essentially power in the House, there wasn't anything getting done. But we made sure we had the team there all night. We slept at the Capitol. We kept working the legislature. Megan and her team were on it. And it was one of the very few bills that made it through in that lame duck session. And we're very proud of it. So what we end up doing after we were able to amend the state law and the governor ultimately signed the bill and made it law, we visited all 43 communities. And when we visited them, we wanted to learn from that. I always say this, leaders go first, but there's always value in going second, right? So when Oakland County did this initiative, we got an opportunity to watch and learn from what Oakland County did and try to figure out how we could do it better here. And Oakland County ran the millage. After they were successful, they went around and visited all the communities and they went on their listening tour and they started putting the plan together. What we did here at Wayne County, under the leadership of our county executive, Warren C. Evans, we went to all 43 communities first. We started off with the opt-out communities. I went to every single community in Wayne County, visited them. And when we visited them, it wasn't just the county executive's office coming. We took members of SMART. See Jordan sitting here. Jordan showed up to a majority of this meeting. Harmony Lloyd was at the other half. She's the CEO of SMART. We took with us the RTA, Ben Stupka from the Regional Transit Authority. And what we did is we listened to them. And what we asked them is for one simple thing. Okay, we sat at the table and, naturally, individuals are always like, I don't like change. We don't want transit. They were just opposed to it, right? But we said, please, before you kill the idea, hear us out and help us build something just in case it passes. Because if it passes, you want something that's going to work for you. So what ended up happening is, and this was remarkable, they started to buy in because ultimately this wasn't our ideas, it was their ideas. As they started looking at what is it that their community needs for their community to be able to thrive. And when we showed up, we didn't just show up with our opinions, we showed up with data that actually showed where the residents are going, why the need to get rid of opt-outs, and why they should participate in a transit system. And, personally, for me, I grew up in a household where, we did not own a car. My parents didn't own a car until I was 15 years old. And there's really essentially the only time we went anywhere is wherever our feet took us, or where the east and west bus on Warren Avenue, or the north and south bus on Schaefer took us. That's it. That's the only places we went. I never really understood the value of transit. I started off my career with Wayne County as an entry-level employee, the sheriff's office as a law enforcement person. But it really didn't click to me until about 6 or 7 years ago, when I started getting really into the public policy work that I'm doing now. And I've learned one thing: transit is essentially the key to unlocking everything else. Ultimately, we got to get people to work. You got to get people to their doctor's appointments. You got to get people to their jobs. You got to get individuals that there was a time when if you didn't own a car, it's because you couldn't afford to own a car and you use transit. Those times no longer exist. There's a generation of people now that just don't want to own cars. And when I grew up, we didn't own a car because we couldn't afford to own a car. And the reality of it is, yes, owning a vehicle is expensive. And it comes with insurance, and we know how the economy is right now. But the reality of it is, there's a whole lot of individuals that choose not to own a car. And and we should not be, we are the motor capital of the world, we're proud of it, but we could also be the transportation, have a transportation that works, that can get people to jobs, to be able to get every citizen the ability to be able to work around. And, You know, we've done those things and we believe that, we're not gonna stop here. We're not gonna just stop. We're gonna keep working and educating, voters. And really, this is part of the education campaign. This is us coming out to try to ensure that every single resident ensures the value that transit brings to them. When we went and we last week, we were, at the Wayne County Transit Authority, which I am the chairman of the board. We were successful in getting ballot language through. And we are working toward getting this on a, August primary, this August on the ballot. And I believe that we are gonna be successful, but we're only gonna be successful with your support. And what we need really from all of you as a call to action is take the materials, take the information, and we need to educate all the voters on why transit is so important. Deputy Mayor, I know you shared something with me about we're here in the city of Westland right now. And if you want to go up the street west to Canton Township, can't do it. That's a problem. That's an issue. And when we went to Canton Township, we showed Canton Township where their residents are going. You know where they're going? Come to Westland. Yeah. That's the reality. And the reality of it is people are traveling around their neighboring communities. They're moving within a 5 to 7 mile radius. They're doing their shopping there. They're either going to their doctor's appointments. They're visiting families that live in neighboring communities. And what we need to do is connect ourselves. And what the idea here is once we are all in Wayne County, now Wayne County, Oakland County, and Macomb County are all equal. Now we start to think about phase 2 of this, right? Phase 2 is to try to think about this as phase 1 as covering the main routes, right? Getting your main routes connected, be able to take the main roads from, downtown Detroit all the way to the western suburbs of Canton Township, right up Michigan Avenue or Bourne Avenue and Ford Road and all that, and connecting us north and south on Middleville, Inkster, Livonia, all those roads. And once we get those connected, phase 2 is trying to think about the first mile and last mile from that main route. But once all 3 of us are connected, now we are in a position where we could go to the state of Michigan, where we know they constantly pass transit money. And we could apply for those grants as a region. We could go to our federal government and apply for those grants from the federal government. The reality of it is your taxpayer dollars are paying into this. The challenge is it's going somewhere else because we have a half-baked system now. We have a system that just isn't working. And it's important that we get this past the finish line because we are taking a risk. We're taking a risk here because if it fails, we're also all out. We're either going to be all in or we're going to be all out. And for the communities that are in right now, like the community we're in right now, Westland, your service is only going to get better. It's only going to get better from here because now SMART does not have to get creative on how they're going to work around all these opt-out communities. Now it's more efficient for them to go right through every single community and not have to worry about trying to think of creative ways to work around the Swiss cheese approach. And we feel that with your support in our continued education, that we are going to be successful. And once we're successful, it's time to think about it as a region. And that's why it's important that Ben came with us with the RTA. And he was able to go to every community with us, learn the communities in Wayne County, and this gets them start thinking about the next approach with this stuff. If that's it, am I announcing some? That's good.
That's great.
At some point, we'll be.
I want to give a huge thank you, both to the Deputy County Exec here, to CEO Warren Evans, and to the whole Wayne County team. They've done a ton of great work to really understand what it is where the gaps are in the system and how it can be so much better. So we're very excited. to be able to work with them up to this date, and then obviously we got a whole lot more moving forward. It's also, yeah, great to get that, some of the background both Joel provided, and Assad did, but that's not those are not the only pieces that have been happening. Every community is always thinking about what their, how they can better serve their community, what the needs of their residents are. Very conveniently, this meshes in very well with what some of the communities have been interested in doing. So I want to invite Erin Schlutow is the can never pronounce your last name right, I'm sorry, is the senior planner for Canton Township and is let's see, hey, it worked this time. And they've been doing a lot of great outreach and engagement to really understand what their residents want to see. So thrilled to have Erin share a little bit about what you guys have been doing. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Schlutow. I'm the senior planner with Canton Township. Thank you so much for having me here today. And it's a really hard act to follow, so I'll try to do my best. When the law changed in 2024, and we knew that there was the potential for the ballot measure coming to the voters, we wanted to be prepared. And Canton Township had done a lot of efforts in rewriting our master plan that was adopted last year. And for the first time, Canton Township talked about public transit, whereas before Canton had been an opt-out community, it hadn't really been discussed. It hadn't been brought to the administration or to the residents, and that was the first time that we really did substantial public outreach and talking about transit. And we found that a lot of the people we talked to were interested in it, and we thought, great, okay, we'll start a transportation plan. And then the law changed, and we said, okay, we're going to do it now. So what we decided to do is, because, as you know, transit doesn't stop at any municipal boundaries, right? People want to get going, they want to move fluidly and easily through the communities in the region. Nope, I went the wrong way. So what we decided to start doing is putting together a consortium project, and we named it the Moving Together Western Wayne County Public Strategy. And this project is about planning and preparing. When we talk to the residents and to the voters and to the people in the community, we're not advocating for the millage. We're not talking about the millage rate or the tax levied on your property. And we're certainly not talking about promoting any other kind of plan. We just wanted to hear what they wanted and what they needed. If they used transit, what did they like about it? If they didn't use transit, why? And we heard a lot of positive from people, like I said, but we heard a lot of negative. Of course, you're going to hear that too. And then we heard people on the fence. Well, I would use it, but I don't know where it is. I would use it, but I don't know how. It doesn't come to me. It's not convenient. All those types of things. If you're feeling that.
Down to go forward.
So I don't need to go through this, but you can see, Canton right there. And yeah, there's a stop that's right on Hicks Road and Ford, and it stops almost at the boundary of Canton and Westland. So you can stand there at the stop and say, hi, Canton. Oh, I could visit you, but I can't. So trying to look on ways that we can connect better. So when we decided to start working on this consortium project with our Western Wayne County communities that had historically opted out, we contacted 14 other municipalities in the area, mostly opt-out, but some of them that were included in the network that were part of the Canton Transit, as was mentioned earlier today. 6 of the communities that we contacted took us up on our offer, and they are highlighted in orange, or I'm sorry, yellow here, except for the city of Belleville. Did not. So it is City of Northville Township, City of Plymouth Township, Canton Township, and Buren Township, and the City of Westland. In this consortium project, the only community that has opted in is Westland. But they're a really great partner to have because, as the data has shown, and as we've heard from residents, people want. I'm not used to this one. People keep wanting to come to Westland, to Canton, back and forth, back and forth. They want to go up to Plymouth, they want to go down to Van Buren, and they want to go to the airport. So it's important that even though Westland is currently opt-in, that we're all part of the community strategies together. So when we decided to kick off this project, we knew Canton couldn't do it alone. We needed some outside help. So we contracted with OHM advisors who've done a lot of wonderful work with our communities. And this is the project's overall timeline. Now, officially, this started in July of 2025, but we did a lot of public engagement and outreach to the public before OHM came on board. And I'll go through some of those public engagement events that we did. So we did 2 different surveys. One was a regional effort through the 15 municipalities that we had contacted with 935 responses. We did a business survey with the 7 in the consortium with 34. We did stakeholder groups, community pop-up events, boards and commission meetings, public transit workshop, that was last week. And then we have transit steering committee that's made up of the consortium. Now, this is just phase 1 of our public outreach efforts that we've done thus far. And we asked a lot of questions of the public. We heard a lot of wonderful things. And when we talk about using public transit, a lot of people said they don't use it, especially in this area because in Canton, and North and South, they don't have it. But one thing that we did ask, which I found interesting, was when you travel outside of Southeast Michigan, do you use public transit? Overwhelmingly, yes. Because you're not averse to public transit. You just maybe don't know how to use it. It was a really telling answer to that question. So these are some of the responses that we saw in our community transit survey. So I can't really see these. Can you move that?
No, you can.
So the majority of people are not aware of the routes, the stops. It's not a catered to geography. The stops are inaccessible or unapproachable. Sometimes you'll see them on the side of the road. There's not an enclosure. It's just a sign in the ground, right? So that's not really conducive to safety or bringing a lot of people together. Reasons. Oh. Stop. Oh, there we go. What public transit would you like to see incorporated into your community? Majority of people wanted fixed routes. Light rail or subway, but we're never gonna get subway. But I thought the light rail was an interesting component because that is something that is being done in Detroit and people seem to like it, and maybe that's something that could expand. The flex route service, curb to curb, etc. So hearing that people were interested in the flex route was really interesting because that's something that is already an established network in the area, and it doesn't take as much to extend it a little bit further. And I'm speaking out of turn because smart takes care of it. And so one of the big things that we heard from people is about the amenities. What is most important to you? Covered enclosures, tracking of where the ride is coming and going, lighting, so safety, right? Safety is the big thing. If you don't feel safe, if you don't feel protected, you're not going to want to use public transit. It would be a stopping point, especially for anyone with any kind of mobility issues, and certainly anyone with any children. I have 2 young children. If I don't feel safe, I don't want to stand on the side of the road, right? So these are just a couple of examples of some of the pop-up pop-up community events that we did. And this was the one from Westland. We had 3 different boards set up at 7 different pop-ups so far this year. And you can, well, last year actually, you can see that we did trunk or treats and we did things with Halloween. And so the kids came out, they loved putting stickers on. We had over 1,000 stickers placed on boards that were designated where you would like to go for transit. We had a free form option where people could write in, what are your thoughts about public transit? Write anything you want. And then we had a third one that noted what type of transit you would like to use. Fixed route, flex, paratransit, and gave a little example of what they are and a picture of it so people could see what it is. So we got a lot of responses. We had a lot of people coming to us and saying, yes, I want to sign up. I want to do this. How can I get involved? Talk to Turfe. So what we heard in the stakeholder groups, pop-ups, these are some free-form examples where they'd like to go, for road shopping, municipal buildings, parks. Airport and Ann Arbor were the 2 biggest requested destinations. Because even if you don't plan to use transit regularly, once in a great while, but if you could not bother someone, if you don't have to pay for parking at the airport, for most people, that's the greatest gift in the world. And certainly going to Detroit, Ann Arbor for sporting events, for any kind of concerts or any kind of community events, it might be more fun to take any kind of public transit rather than have to worry about traffic, parking, driving. You can go and have a little more fun without having to worry about driving. Residents' concerns, again, safety is the big one, traffic, stop access, and the ADA infrastructure, and napkin operational hours and wait time. We heard about that one a lot because people were worried that if public transit were to come into their community, that any of the existing funds that were diverted to napkin would then be taken away. And that was not our plan, and that's not anything that we are promoting or encouraging. If anything, we want to give more to napkin for them to support and give more resources to people who need it. And for business concerns, employee retention, and then again, closures, safety and security. Resident suggestions, they want biking infrastructure and regional connections. And then again, the over 50% of the respondents said they were interested in fixed routes. So what our plan is working on is looking at these transit supportive planning efforts. We heard all this feedback from the people, from the public. So what are we doing as part of our project? Because we can say we want all these things and we give it smart all of our information and all of our feedback. And we can say we want all these things, but they're the ones that ultimately plan the routes and fix the budgets and do all the money part. We can do the planning part, they're doing the money part. But what we want to do as part of this effort is advocate for our residents, the lighting, the heaters, the cameras, the benches, things that are safe for them. We can explore educational efforts for the residents to make sure they know how to use it, how to pay for it, and any on-demand options. We can look at transit-oriented development opportunities in each of our communities. We can look at modifying our ordinances and look at policies that increase densities and modify these parking requirements or any of these transit stops. Economic development opportunities along transit routes. We can encourage developers to look at these areas where the transit routes are going to come through. Again, more restaurants, more housing, things like that. And we can also look at multimodal transit connections and bike. I should not say bike, I should say bus. I apologize. Bus to bike networks, right? Someone rides their bike, they get on the bus, they go where they need to go, they can take their bike, that first mile, last mile component. And one of the big things that we want to focus on in the project is the continuation of this consortium. So we can continue to be the conduit between our residents, between SMART, between when it comes to we all work together. And one of the big questions we asked was to our consortium group, would you be interested in partnering with us to continue to work grants to support transit-related infrastructure? We had 7 responses. I'm thrilled that nobody said no. It's my favorite question I've asked, because even though we have communities in our consortium that aren't wholly in for transit because they don't know how it's going to work yet, they still want to partner, right? They still want to be at the table, they still want to be part of the conversation, and that's really important. So I thank you all very much for taking time and listening to all this. We are going to continue to do public outreach, so if there's anything that you want to talk to me about, I can talk about this stuff all day. I can give our information, and we'd love to invite you to a talk sometime. Thank you.
I do love seeing again that every one of the communities is interested in being part of this and differing levels of interest or enthusiasm, but I think that idea, this is coming, how can it best benefit your communities? And I think when I was looking through some of the results, one of the questions like, what kind of transit do you want to use? There was an option for none. And no one picked it. Everyone was interested in at least some levels of transit. So in addition to those various efforts, yes, as has been mentioned a couple of times, SMART has also been evaluating where do people want to go, where are people living and working, and what are the types of services that could potentially be provided. Again, I'm sure Jordan will say this as well. This is not a firm plan set in stone. These are some ideas of the types of things that could be available. And then assuming this does pass, then the Wayne County Transit Authority and SMART and the communities will then figure out the more the specifics, and there's more to it. But thrilled to invite up Jordan, who's the Vice President of Planning and Innovation for SMART, to talk about the planning that they've been doing.
This is great. This is a fantastic turnout. A fantastic presentations. We've really built over the course of the past year or so a really excellent sort of camaraderie with the county, the communities, and we're working toward a lot of really great things. And we have the luxury of time to plan, to talk with everyone. That's something we didn't have in Oakland County, so this is fantastic. So,
Down.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Wayne County Transit evaluation that we have been working on at SMART since last fall. So we've partnered with HNTB to look at the existing conditions out there in the world. Where are people going? What do travel patterns look like? What does the market, what does this market analysis say that is needed for making these connections? And with that hard data and then having a lot of conversations with communities, we developed some service concepts. Again, this is phase one, the bones of this project, connecting the network. And then a lot of stakeholder outreach. I'll talk a little bit first about the market analysis. So as Assad mentioned earlier, we see that folks don't care about the municipal borders. You're traveling between neighboring communities. We found that a lot of trips tend to be short, 5 or 6 miles, and that major travel flows exist between the obvious job centers, the big education centers, manufacturing centers, those kinds of places. So we held, over the course of 6 weeks, 19 meetings meetings with 19 groups of stakeholders from different communities. First, we came to them with the data and showed it to everyone and asked them, what they thought. Does this align with, what you're hearing in your communities? And then we came back a second time with our service concepts to really go through each of them to see, where these connections are needed. Connectivity to key destinations like these job hubs, industrial hubs, senior centers, educational institutions. We heard a lot about the service gaps that are out there. This half-baked cake that we have, this Swiss cheese environment where we are forced to take bus routes that would be best served to go straight through multiple communities around other communities, which affects performance of the routes. It affects, all those things, directness and ridership and the attractiveness of using transit. And we also see a lot of growth in these industrial corridors, whether it's jobs and new residential developments, and all kinds of these projects. So let's see here. So this is the fun part where we take all of the information that we've synthesized and we start drawing lines on a map. We know this is what True loves. This is what the transit planners really love to do. So what we've got here is essentially they're not really a surprise. It's these direct connections on major corridors in the county. There are 5 route extensions proposed. These would be corridors like Michigan Avenue, Fort Road, those areas toward the Western Wayne and the connections to the Washington border. And we've proposed 8 new routes. And these would cover a lot of the main north, south, and east, west corridors, which I'll talk a little bit about more in a minute. And then in the southern and southwestern portion of the county, where we have a lot of rural areas, we found that those, based on our data and based on the discussions that we had, are most appropriate for a flexible option. Some of you may have heard of Smart Flex. It's like an Uber-like service that exists within zones, much cheaper than Uber. So these kinds of menu of options are most appropriate for, different kinds of communities throughout the county. So to touch a little bit on the recommended existing route extensions, we're looking at implementing a new route. If you've heard of the Smarter Mobility Program, our comprehensive operational analysis that we've been working on the last few years, and now we're implementing. We're planning for a new route on 4th Street later this year. But as part of this evaluation, we're looking to extend it, potentially beyond that, the Corwell Hospital in Trenton down to, Gibraltar and Brownstown and Flat Rock, and making those connections to the Flat Rock Ford Assembly Plant and all those communities in that area. The 160 downriver, making those connections to the downriver and southern Wayne County areas. Michigan Avenue, again, major corridor, several smart routes on it now. One is over here, Michigan Local 210. Taking these routes through Canton Township, making these connections near the county border. We've been talking with our friends at the RIDE in Ann Arbor. We've been talking with our friends at the RTA about how we can bridge that gap between the county border and RIDE's service area. Again, Michigan, Ford Road, these are the big ones for extending westward and improving service. Ford Road, we're also planning to make some improvements later this year as part of the Smarter Mobility, increasing frequency and adding Saturday service. All right, so these are the 8 new routes that are being proposed. And as I, have said a couple of times, these are really the major corridors, the major north-south and east-west crosstown connections that complete this quilt and don't leave any gaps. So then we have to sort of talk dollars and cents. This what we're expecting to capture is about twice of what is collected now. And the service concepts that I just highlighted are about twice as much service as is currently in Wayne County. So then when we start talking about other options, those regional connections, you kind of have to think about how you're going to complete the puzzle first and then sort of add on to it as things go, as we collectively as a region seek more funding for these services like this express airport connections, express connections between Ann Arbor and Detroit and all these things that we all really want. So what's next? So we completed the evaluation in January. We're making some rounds. We're talking with lots of folks. We are kicking off our education campaign, our education effort, that we will be smart and our marketing friends will be out in the communities all spring and all summer. So we will be sure to keep you posted and all the help we can get to get the word out and come together to really make some good things happen here. So with the measure passes later this year, we will have these basics in place so that we can begin going back to the public and saying, these are our proposals. What else can we do? So we can hold hearings, we can, get that feedback and really refine the routes so that when they're implemented in the most effective and useful way. And then the course that we have for this is set to implement these routes over the about three years, several routes per year, as we need to buy new vehicles and those take time to procure. And there's all those kinds of concerns that go into it, but we're really excited for this and we're ready to make some moves here. So thank you all.
All right, and say, yeah, I was gonna say, don't go too far, actually, maybe you wanna grab a spot up front, because, now we got questions. So you guys have gotten a ton of great information. Really interesting to see what's happening at the county level, and the municipal level, at the smart level, and how it's all gonna come together. I wanna take a little bit of time to get some questions, so as I shared before, we are to make sure that our folks online and the folks here can all weigh in. We have a slido.com/Wayne. If you go to that place, you can put in your questions and you can give a thumbs up to any of the questions you think are particularly important. And we've got a couple in already. And I think you kind of alluded to this a little bit, Jordan, but one of our first questions was, does SMART have a plan to increase bus frequencies and days of operations in Western Wayne County on new and existing routes if the measure is passed? I don't know if you've had a chance to explore what frequencies or days of the week might look like for those types of services or for the existing services.
Yes, so with the service concepts that we developed, we took into account, because to understand, how much you can spend on a route, you need to understand how frequently you're running it, how late you're running it, does it have weekend service, how, early does it start and how late does it run? So those are all part of these service concepts, and we do have them in a big, long document that we would be willing to share, and it's fun to look through. So the answer is yes, we are considering these things, and we'd be happy to discuss them or share those with you if there's particular routes that you're interested in.
And as you noted, that this is a great first draft. It's a great example of what's possible. Again, there'll be additional detail worked out. Assuming this passes, then we can really get into the fine tuning. I think this question might actually be more for our Wayne County Deputy Executive. I know, Jordan, you had alluded to conversations with our friends in Washtenaw County and Ride. But I'm curious, or yes, for any of you, is there any chance of extending the Michigan Ave routes to meet AATA somewhere near the county line? Or I will amend that to say, I think SMART should run service all the way into Ypsi, and then Ann Arbor Transit should run service all the way into Canton. But I guess, Assad, if you can share a little bit about thoughts about connecting with our friends to the west.
Yes, clearly for transit to work, you gotta have good connections with all your transit partners. Obviously we have that relationship with DDOT right here in the city, and SMART and DDOT are gonna work very closely together by increasing those connections. But we're also talking to the Ride at Ann Arbor. We've had some really good conversations with them. We are definitely gonna be, anything on the western side of the county, we're gonna need those connections between Ann Arbor and the SMART bus service. And the idea is people move in a region, people in Westland may go to Detroit more, but people in Canton go to Ann Arbor. And Canton Township is just a neighboring community right over there. So we need to make sure those connections are there. And not only that those connections are there, we want them to get creative as well, right? Maybe for like a Saturday afternoon in the fall, there's a lot of things that go on downtown Ann Arbor, like the big football games at the Big Island. We probably want something creative around those, maybe some park and rides, also park and ride to the airport. When we travel, sometimes, parking your vehicle at the airport could get very expensive. Maybe there could be some creative shuttles where people could park in safe lots, leave their cars there, and jump on a bus and be able to take it right to Metro Airport. Well, yes, we want those connections with Ann Arbor. We want them everywhere.
Thank you so much. I think that's a question I'm hearing all the time is making those connections. And obviously it's a little bit more complicated with multiple transit agencies in multiple counties, but I know our friends at the Regional Transit Authority are excited to help bring some of those pieces together. I think maybe Jordan, this might be, well, I guess, for either Jordan or Erin, what services will reach Cherry Hill? I'm interested in given its density and the lack of connection. I don't know if Jordan, that's something you're able to answer, or, Erin, if you have thoughts about, Cherry Hill area. Yeah.
Well, let's see, let's see, this one requires a little bit more discussion, can I go back to the map here?
Yeah.
Let me try it. Oh,
Okay.
you go ahead. Sorry. This one?
So, let's see, let's have a little geography test here. So Cherry Hill, I'm looking right over here. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I get a B plus. So this is the great part about this planning process. And like I mentioned at the beginning of, my presentation, is that we have started this, we've done this ahead of time. Oakland County didn't do this. So we have the benefit of looking at this, taking the data, taking what we've heard, putting it on a map, and then hearing more suggestions, hearing more input. We had an event last month in the neighborhood, the Cherry Hill neighborhood, and I wasn't terribly familiar with the area. It's a fantastic place with a lot of new housing going in, a lot of urban fabric. And yeah, these are the long answer is maybe. And well, maybe that's the short answer. The long answer is we will continue to have these conversations, and we will continue to see how we can stretch these routes, how we can see what types of services are appropriate in particular areas.
Or I was just gonna say that, connections to the Oh, yeah, Cherry Hill Village is in, along Cherry Hill Road and Ridge Road, and, it's this little, developed enclave where there's a mix of housing and, retail, and we're trying to cultivate it into having a little bit more mixed use and parks and things like that. And it's all very, you drive through it, you feel like you're driving through Victoria and back in the 1800s. It's very, very cute, very, very, family pedestrian oriented.
Yeah, pedestrian, I think that walkable.
Yeah.
Pedestrian was walkable.
Much so, yeah, it's kind of what we call the downtown Canton, because we don't have one. But so we did hear a lot in our public engagements that people wanted to have those connections from Cherry Hill Village to Board Road and whatnot, so you don't have to traverse the crazy roads just to go get some milk or something like that. So those are things that we have heard from the public, and I know that we've talked to Jordan about that smart. Again, phase one, so it's not that it's not on our radar, it's just, you start small and you move along.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great example of an improvement that can be made. That would be a great area to connect. Now, again, it's a little bit of a distance from other destinations, so figuring out the best way to do that is important. So thank you. Couple more questions before we shift gears a little bit. Are there any plans for infrastructure investments in order to speed up vehicles over these distances, like signal priority, dedicated lanes or roads? I think I can give that first to Jordan and then maybe to Assad in terms of, obviously getting the route that, I'll make a little editorial that if anybody's seen my, the pyramid of transit needs, if you've seen like there's the pyramid of human needs, what are the what's critical first, you need air, and then water, and then food, shelter, art. Well, we have our same for transit. First, the service has to exist. And it has to be accessible to everyone. But then we very much do want to make sure that it is fast and convenient, and then we can definitely look into things like dedicated lanes. But do you want to say anything about efforts to move this along faster?
Yeah. We do know that traffic is a concern, and on some of these corridors, they get very clogged in the afternoon in particular. Buses also get stuck in this traffic, which affects our on-time performance, which affects, you know, your ride showing up when you need it to. So we are exploring, some opportunities to do this right now, particularly on Gratiot Avenue in Macomb County, and Woodward Avenue in Oakland County, two of the highest ridership corridors, in the smart system in the region. We are going after some funding to see if we can work with MDOT, work with, the local communities to get some potential transit signal priority, to get transit lanes so that, the bus becomes a really an attractive option, in a place where traffic can get really clogged. So this is kind of the first stab at it. And if it goes well, you know, we can seek more opportunities at, you know, in places where service is new, you know.
Excellent. You want to add anything?
Sure.
Your face, as you said.
Yep, so, I think Megan said it perfectly, we gotta start somewhere, right? Right now, we have a lot of opt-outs in our community, so Smart has to figure out how to work all around that. I think, a great example is, when the NFL draft happened here in Detroit. I went down to the NFL draft, and what I did is I gave myself extra travel time, because I figured there was gonna be a lot of traffic. But during the NFL draft, what Smart did is they had increased routes, they had more bus routes. They advertised to the communities, use the bus and the transit to get downtown. You know what happened? Not much traffic. When people use transit, it actually reduces the amount of traffic that's on the roadway. And I think this is all gonna work hand in hand. Now, in Wayne County, I started off as a sheriff's deputy with Wayne County, and I worked narcotics. I did undercover for 3 years, so I did surveillance, so I watched people for a living. And what people do, they're creatures of habit. And what we have to do here is also educate individuals on the use of using public transit. And every time I travel and I go to Boston, I never once think about renting a car. The first thing that comes to my mind is using the subway and using their public transit system. I've been essentially trained to use their public transit, but I have not necessarily been trained to use our public transit here. And hopefully, once we have a full system and we could get around, instead of driving my car to Westland, I can get out in Dearborn Heights and from downtown Detroit and take a bus right down Warren Avenue and get down to the city of Westland. I think once this education phase happens, I think having those bus lanes are gonna make things convenient and getting our cars off the road and getting more people using public transit. And this is why all of you are important in educating the public on the benefits of public transportation.
All right, I'm gonna run through a couple of questions kind of quick, because I'm pretty sure I can answer them. If this passes, will there be a tax increase for cities that have already opted in? No. For the communities that are already opted in, that already have the existing services like the Westland, this is a renewal. This is purely a continuation of the same millage rate that you've had for several years. So for the existing opt-in communities, this will just be a renewal. But with that renewal, you will also then be able to connect to all these additional places that you can't get to right now. There's another question, other than Smart, are other transit providers involved? We talked about how, we mentioned, again, they're talking with the Ann Arbor Transit to see how we'll make those connections happen. And I guess the piece we did leave out, DDOT, the city of Detroit's a really important part of Wayne County. And it has been an opt-out in the past because it's provided a lot of service. City of Detroit will be opted in. When we say all of Wayne County is voting on this, we mean all of Wayne County. Now, the plan that the county executive's office has committed to is that the funds that are raised in Detroit will be returned to Detroit. That doesn't replace the DDOT service. It'll be a great supplement. So there are conversations actually going on with the new mayor's office, with DDOT, to figure out what are the best enhancements that DDOT can provide. So they have committed, there will be substantive, new benefits, to Detroiters, not only for Detroiters to be able to connect to jobs and everything out in Livonia, Plymouth, Canton, et cetera, but also within the city itself. Yeah, is anything else you guys wanted to add on, other than smart? Did anything I missed there? Okay, and then,
I think, it's important to know. So in 2018, when the RTA ran their millage, it was a bad plan. The reason it was a bad plan is it got too complicated. Everyone, I mean, there was no clear message in what the RTA was going to deliver, right? It started off with rails, high-speed rails, and it had all this creativity to it, had billions of dollars of infrastructure. And then once the policymakers started to figure out, hey, how long is this going to take to build and who's going to pay for it, they realized, yeah, this isn't going to work here. And the reality of it is when we took this approach at the county, we wanted to keep it simple because there's a lot of wisdom and simplicity. And if we do this through a phased approach, I think what you're not going to find in this plan that was in the RTA plan from 2018, there was a lot of confusion and they kept changing the plan up. And what we wanted to do here is the minute SMART rolled something out, we wanted just to tweak it. And Jordan mentioned it. Where we're at today is we haven't even gotten to a ballot yet, and we already have a plan. Oakland County went to a ballot, was successful at the ballot, and then spent the next year building out their plan. And the one thing that you could guarantee is effective day one of the next year, SMART is going to be in a position to be able to roll out as soon as they could hire drivers. And the reality of it is right now, currently, not to commend SMART for this, at one point, they had almost 150 vacancies in drivers. The last time I checked, and I sit on the SMART board, and I know some members here go to all the regular SMART meetings, they have one vacancy right now. One vacancy. Not the leadership of SMART, and that's the reality, and we're going to be ready to roll out. Like we are not, the minute we pass the ballot millage, I'm very optimistic we're going to do this. That's not the celebration point. Someone called me the other day and he said, hey, you should be happy now, we're going to get on the ballot. I'm like, I'm not going to be happy until we get it passed. And then when he asked me, we get it passed, I'm not going to be happy until we start doing it. And when we start doing it, I'm like, I'm not going to be happy until we actually have a transit system that people are using. And when we see people using less cars and we're able to move people around using our public transportation system, then we know it's working.
excellent, thank you so much for that. Although I will put a little asterisk, I can see it in Jordan's eyes that now that they've got lots of, plenty of staff, thanks to a great raise and a lot of promotion, it still takes 2 or 3 years to buy buses. So this will be, despite the enthusiasm, and it will get started on day one, it will take a few years to fully roll out all of the new services, but
No pressure on.
there you go, you're as fast as you can on that. A couple of the other questions that came in, we're gonna shift gears a little bit, because I'm gonna pass this question to Joel, our campaigns manager. There were a couple of questions about how can I help? How can we convince people that transit is safe? And how can we convince people in places like Livonia that this is worthwhile and that transit is good for them? So Joel has been and will continue to be leading a whole campaign to get the word out. We've already had a number of community meetings and meetups and presentations and monthly team meetings. So I'm going to pass it to Joel to talk a little bit about that question of how can you get involved and where are we? How can we make sure that this is successful?
Thanks. So, as you've heard, it's really essential, that we get this proposal passed in August. As Assad said, we're all in or all out. And the defeat would be quite a disaster, for transit in Wayne County. So there is a risk that we're taking here. But I believe it is a risk worth taking, and it wouldn't be going on the ballot, if we didn't, think so. But we do have a lot of work ahead of us. True with Alton Lake, not only for this to pass, but for it to pass with a wide enough margin that regional leaders understand the appetite for transit in this region, that things have really changed over the last couple of decades, that more and more people see the need for further transit investment in this region. As was said, this proposal is a phase one. It would establish a base level of transit throughout the county. But we also know that there's much more that's needed in the region, and we need to keep up that momentum in the years to come. Wayne County is a big county, almost 2 million people, and there will be hundreds of thousands of people voting in the August election, which is really coming up even sooner. A lot of people are voting by mail nowadays, and the ballots get sent out towards the end of June, just a few months away, hard as that is to believe. So we've got to educate our neighbors, our friends throughout the county on the need for this proposal, on the need for connecting Wayne County and the broader region. And as Megan said, we've already been having a few events around the county. Some of us have gone to places like Livonia Spree, other events throughout the region to talk to people about countywide transit. And the response that we've got has been very positive. But most people don't know that this is going to be on the ballot. We've got to educate folks and spread the word as much as we can. So what can you do? You can pledge to support countywide transit on the True website, and ask your neighbors to do so as well. You can talk to your friends and neighbors about countywide transit and why you think it's necessary. If you're a member of an organization, whether it be a Rotary Club, a neighborhood organization, perhaps a congregation, you can schedule a presentation. We'd be delighted to come out and talk to your group about this proposal. And you can join True to canvass at a community event. We will be doing a lot more canvassing on the streets, talking to people across the county in the months to come. And we need people to do that. Like I said, we have hundreds of thousands of voters to reach. And a few upcoming events. This Saturday, as folks may know, are the No Kings demonstrations around the county. There are over a dozen in Wayne County alone. And this is an excellent opportunity to talk to folks, most of them probably pretty favorable to the idea of more public investment in public goods. So yeah, if you're interested in coming out Saturday to talk to folks at one of these No Kings events, whether it's out here in Western Wayne County, or if you're in Detroit, please come talk to me. This coming Tuesday, we have our Downriver Transit meetup down in Wyandotte. Any Downriver folks here? A few, we're proud, yes. So that's going to be at the Wyandotte Beer Company in downtown Wyandotte. This is the latest in a series of transit meetups that we've been scheduling around the county. The following week, there will be a Dearborn Transit meetup in West Dearborn. Yeah, True will be spreading the word about these through our email database. Yeah, we really need your help. Again, to make sure not only that this passes, but that it passes with as wide margin as possible. My personal goal is, for at least, 2 out of 3 voters, to support this in August. So let's make it happen.
How do the people online reach you?
People online can reach me at joel@detroittransit.org. That's JOEL@detroittransit.org.
I will add, we've got some very simple handouts right now, so, as many as we have in the back, grab a stack, if you wanna give them out to friends, neighbors, colleagues, coworkers, bus buddies, and there will certainly be, updated information, and literature that we'll be distributing at events. And if you support Wayne County-wide transit, we're doing a little bit of a photo position. So I'm gonna ask Zanaya to be at our sign-in table, and you would write in a couple of words why you're all in for Wayne County-wide transit, and your name and first name and city. We'll take a little picture, and then we can start showing the breadth of people who are supportive of this. So that's a quick thing you can even just do tonight. Yeah, I wanted to ask each of our presenters to share any closing remarks. And I'm sorry we ended up having any questions for you specifically, but you want to kick us off with some closing remarks. What else do you want to share before we wrap up tonight?
Sure, thank you very much. And again, thank you to everybody here who joined in Westland at our City Hall, and thank you to all those who joined online. We're very much appreciative of your support of our community. And as I said earlier, you have a chance to go out to eat afterwards. Get a restaurant here in Westland. We have a number of great places to go out and eat and shop at and enjoy in Westland. But we're so supportive, me personally as a council member, just as the resident of the Western Wayne County area, to have this initiative passed. But the city of Westland more broadly has been supportive of transit with our Lincoln Transit Authority and with actions that we have taken in the past, working with collaborative regional partners in Wayne County, our partners in Canton Township, and all across Wayne County. So we're very excited to have this come on the ballot, and I'm personally going to be out there campaigning for this, as I would for any candidate running for office, because it is critically important that we pass this accessible, inclusive transit initiative. So thankful for you all being here tonight. Thankful for this being on the.
Thank you so much. Any closing remarks, any questions we didn't address?
No, I didn't have anything. I just want to say thank you all for coming. And if anyone wants to talk transit, you can reach me at Canton Township, and they'll pass on my contact information. So thank you all.
Awesome, thank you so much. As Erin shared before, they've been doing a lot of great outreach across 7 different communities and will continue to do so. So, Jordan, any closing remarks?
Just want to say thanks again, everyone. This is great to see so many faces in here, to see all these connections that we're building, throughout this process, since we started meeting with communities last spring, since I started going to meetings with Assad, talking with mayors, talking with the township supervisors, and really getting a read on where everyone's coming from and building these coalitions and really great relationships across the county and across the region, and understanding the needs and getting on the same page. So at SMART, we're really excited. We've got a really enthusiastic group of leaders working in operations, in planning, in maintenance, in every department, and we're all ready for this. So that'll leave it at that. It's a lot of excitement.
Thank you so much. I will note, I forgot to mention, these cards were on many of the chairs, and there's some in the back. True's doing a lot more events these days. I'm so excited to have such a great team, and we've been hearing from people that they want to get together more often. So, so we've got a lot of different events. You can go to DetroitTransit.org/events to see different both the events that were mentioned and other things that are coming up. contact infos on here too. So, and I will let our deputy county executive, wrap us up for the evening.
Thank you for coming out. I think, you know, you guys are really the individuals that are gonna help get us past the finish line. You know, you are informed, you're educated, you care enough to come out here to listen to this conversation. And, we appreciate everything that you've done. I met Megan about 4 years ago and we've gotten really close professionally and, you know, really appreciate the work that she's done for True and for the whole entire transportation industry. But I've seen many of your faces around throughout the community and we built friendships here. And I think this is what it's about. It's about connecting all of us. And the goal is to connect all 43 communities, connect our entire region, and be able to get our whole entire region working and moving in the right direction. So thank you. Appreciate each and every one of you.
All right, this is the closing survey on Slido, and watch for other emails and other ways to get involved. So thank you everyone so much for coming out online or in person. Thank you.
Yeah.